My name is Joshua Gibson, and you are listening to the Philosophical Weightlifting Podcast, a show dedicated to promoting a message of critical thinking as it pertains to strength training, nutrition, and well-being. This is done through interviews with experts, high-level athletes, coaches, and people heavily involved in strength sports and athletic development. Pull up a chair, grab a coffee, and let's get on to today's podcast. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Philosophical Weightlifting Podcast. I'm your host, Joshua Gibson. This is episode, I honestly don't know. I have no idea when this is going to be released. So it could be 98, it could be 99. This could be the landmark 100th episode, which would be really awesome, especially considering the guest. So I actually have Jennyfer Roberts.
Perfect,
yeah, and you pulled out with a Y, right?
Yes, Jennyfer with a Y.
Very unique.
Remember me, I like that.
Yeah, so she's opposite from me. We're actually on Zoom right now. And if you want to watch the video, you can go onto my YouTube channel and check it out. If you're on YouTube, hello. You know, I haven't shaved. I think it's a good look. Some people might not think that, but I like it. And given the situation around the globe with the pandemic, you know, it's nice to try different styles and different kind of flavors of outfits and stuff. So we talked about wearing sweats and kind of being more casual. So you'll have to excuse that. But Jennyfer, it's Sunday. It's like 6:45 p.m. where I'm at. How's it going?
Well, I was kind of giving you a preface before we started, but it's been a hard week. It's been a hard day. But I did spend a lot of today kind of trying to write down a lot of my thoughts and not think too much about doing this podcast because I knew we'd be talking about, you know, heavy stuff tonight.
Sure.
So I'm okay. My heart's racing a little bit. I'm a little nervous, but I am, you know, I'm glad to be here and to have a conversation. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. And I think it's cool because I remember, and I don't know his name. I think it might be Nick. He's like an 81 kilo weightlifter. He's like really good. He trained out of the gym with Yasha. And you trained with Yasha at one point?
Oh, yeah, in Norwood.
Yeah, Norwood. I remember watching those YouTube videos and watching you guys lift. And so it's not like I'm not like starstruck, but you know, those are great videos and you're really strong. I mean, really talented.
Thank you.
Which actually makes me wonder, like, how did you get your start in weightlifting? But kind of even if you want to rewind a little bit before that, did you play any other sports or, you know, how'd you get involved in athletics kind of in general?
Yeah, sure. So I would call myself a lifelong athlete. When I started, when I was younger, I kind of tried a little bit of everything. I did gymnastics when I was really, really young, but that's a pretty expensive sport. So I don't think I stayed in that too long. I did a little bit of cheerleading, went back to gymnastics when I was probably too old for it, like everybody says. So I was 13. I started doing gymnastics and, you know, everyone's like, oh, you should have started this when you were younger. And so that theme kind of followed me throughout my life. So I did gymnastics in high school. I did track and field, actually. You know, I didn't even do gymnastics that long. And then I went to college and I dove. I kind of used my gymnastics background. I walked on to the D1 diving team, which was really cool because one of my best friends in college, she was on the swim team and I went to one of her swim meets and I did not watch her at all. I was like, there are people diving over there and I'm pretty sure I can do that. So I went and I asked the coach, put me in the belt and was like, yeah, I can totally teach you how to be a diver. So welcome to the team. And then I was a diver. And after I graduated from college, lucky for me, I got to, you know, it was a 5-year school. So I got to do 4 years of diving when I started that as a sophomore. And then when I graduated from college, I, you know, sports kind of went away and it was a really weird, like, hole in my life, but I was having so much fun, you know, that was like a great time. And I had a friend who started doing CrossFit. I think this is kind of like everyone's intro into weightlifting is someone's like, you got to do CrossFit. It's great. And he was like, you're going to be really good at it. You were a gymnast, you know, you're an athlete, like you're going to be good. All the gymnasts who come and start do CrossFit, they're great. And I kind of looked at it and I said, you are 100% right. I will absolutely kill it. I will love it. I'm not going to do that right now because I'm going to go 125% into it. and I want a little more breathing room. So I waited about like a year until I had like a girlfriend go and try. So I started CrossFit, and that was in 2013. So I think I was like 20. How old was I? 25 or something. And then after 1 year of that, a weightlifting coach in my area saw one of my Facebook videos and was like, "Hey, would you like to do a weightlifting competition?" And I thought, absolutely. Yeah, sure. I'll do a weightlifting competition. I didn't have a car. He picked me up, and it sounds a little weird now, but he picked me up and he was like, "We're going to this competition in Norwood." That was my first competition. Was in 2014. And I qualified for nationals in AO in 2014, that was pretty cool. I mean, for me, I was like, oh, I just hit those numbers in the gym. So, that's pretty cool. I guess I can go to nationals now. So that's how I got started. I did CrossFit and weightlifting in tandem for a very long time. I think basically until, I think I kept going until like 2017, but yeah, there's been a lot of bumps in the road. I was going to go, my first national competition was going to be the American Open in 2014. That was in DC. And my dad died on September 30th, 2014. And then 3 weeks later to the day, I tore my Achilles tendon. So I was just like, okay, well, I'm definitely, I'm not going to that competition. And for me, after that surgery, after tearing my Achilles tendon, weightlifting was so much more appealing than CrossFit suddenly, because it was so measurable. Like with CrossFit, you might not do the same workout again for months or maybe ever. And with CrossFit, I was like, with weightlifting, I could say, well, last week, I was moving the barbell and well, first I had to learn how to walk again. But after that, I was like, okay, well, I added 1 kilo this week. I added 2, my squat, I did sets of 5 at this weight. And it was just, I could see it. It was beautiful. So that was kind of like, not just part of my physical recovery, but like my mental, like I'm coming back. I have something to compete for, to fight for. It was great. So that's my very long answer on how I got started in weightlifting.
Sure. And I've spoken to so many people who were gymnasts, but I haven't spoken to anyone who dove competitively. And maybe, I'm ignorant to a lot of what that sport entails besides like the competitive aspects, but maybe a good question would be, what do a lot of people not understand about it or get wrong? Are there any like misconceptions about it? And then what was your favorite part of it, given how fearful it would be jumping off of something that high into water? I don't know if that's like actually that scary or what.
Yes, it's terrifying. So I think that's like the biggest thing I want to tell people is first of all, we're not all just hanging out in the hot tub over there. Anyone who's a swimmer will say, I'm absolutely jealous of the divers. They're always over there just sitting in the hot tub. But it's really scary. I was like, definitely diving as a sport in general is not like as strenuous as swimming, of course. There were times where I would, get to the top of the tower and be out of breath. So like, that's a different kind of activity for sure. So, it really hurts when you hit the water. I want people to know that I had bruises on my face, my arms, and yeah, I think it's really hard. It's very technical. Sure. It's very scary. And it's like, just like weightlifting, it's super mental. You got to see yourself doing the dive. You have to see yourself doing the lift. And you can be super capable of it. If you don't have your head right, you're not doing it.
How seamless is it? Because it seems like anytime you try to put together a new routine, there are going to be a lot of fails. And I guess like you just kind of like suck it up and endure whatever discomfort would be the result of that, because they all can't be clean. And
right, but there's ways to build up to it. So if you go and you look at divers training, like you'll have like a dry room or a dry board. So you're doing stuff in a belt, like landing on a foam pit. Okay. And you can get in a belt with your coach, and they can have you move, do the movements. And when you land with your head, like they're holding you up. So you can do repetition after repetition in different areas like that, and then progress to the water. Some coaches can be very good and do belt over the 1 meter, which is really great. There's not a lot of pools that have that either. But then another thing is some pools also have bubbles that come up. And so that's kind of like the training wheels. If it's like a new dive and you might smack, you can turn those bubbles on and it breaks up the surface of the water so that, you know, you won't smack. Of course, if you don't land in the bubbles, which I've seen a lot, like people go right over the bubbles, it doesn't help you. But, you know, there are ways to kind of progress in a safe fashion or a way. Yeah.
Do you have any videos if people are interested in like checking out your dive specifically? Do you have any online? Good question.
This was kind of before the days of Instagram. So we were recording on, you know, we'd have TiVo and we didn't really take a lot of videos on our phone because it was like such crappy. Right. But I do have some videos. I just haven't really posted them. I think I have maybe like a couple videos. Yeah, I got Instagram in like 2012 and I finished diving in 2011. So yeah, but maybe I should put some up.
Yeah, I think people would love that, and especially, you know, after this releases, we can direct them to your Instagram, which we'll kind of plug, or wherever you want to put them up, and they can check them out. It'll be a nice like addendum to the podcast.
Yeah.
So I mean, diving, you know, I can't relate really, but I skateboarded for a really long time, and I think there are kind of that similarity of the courage it takes to, you know, commit to something where like the fear of injury is looming. And then he transitioned to CrossFit and then weightlifting, which I feel like is a much more controlled sport. Now, when you tore your Achilles tendon, was that a result of training or was that just like a freak thing that happened?
Yeah, that was box jumps. I'm sure everyone was like,
really?
Box jumps. I'm like, yes, it definitely was. It was right after Jamie Hagia had done it too, like months before. And I was at like the grid combine. So I was all into it. Like I went to the CrossFit Games in 2014 just to watch. And, you know, so I'd seen all these CrossFit athletes were starting to tear their Achilles tendon. And then as soon as I did it, I was like, I know exactly what just happened. Yeah. And that's what everyone says. But yeah, it was box jumps. Be careful of those rebounding box jumps within the last 10 seconds of the workout. That was like the worst part. I was like, just trying to get those last couple reps, you know?
Yeah. And then obviously we kind of propel ourselves into your weightlifting career, the start of it. Looking back on that time, you know, you spent with CrossFit and diving and gymnastics, you know, do any particular moments stick out? Like one single moment, you know, maybe the pinnacle of kind of your time before you got into weightlifting?
Ooh, before weightlifting, what was the moment?
Yeah.
You know, that's an interesting question. I never really thought about. I don't really have like a defining moment. I feel like I have a lot in weightlifting, but for those sports, I really don't. I don't know. I remember more like the teammates, the trips in general, like training trips and things like that. But yeah, because it's so interesting with those. It's not really about one thing. It's combined. Like you have to do 6 lifts to get your score. You have to do right. So I didn't really have as many of those. Like this was the moment.
Right. Did you ever take any of the? I mean, obviously, competing in a sport in college is like an achievement in and of itself. But you know, with weightlifting, you were able to medal at a national level, which very few people. You know, given the kind of the tiers of USA weightlifting now, where you have like series or national meets, or you know, a lot of people don't get to experience that. So it is a kind of a crowning achievement and I guess like a coming of age. So when you got into weightlifting, like from day one, you know, of switching full time, maybe we can kind of start off like, where'd you end up? You said it was in St. Louis.
Oh, okay. So I started lifting with Dave Lucier at North Shore Weightlifting in New England. And so his gym, he actually started coming to like work with me at Brick. I was working out at Brick Boston, right downtown, and it was right across the street from where I worked. So after my surgery, he would come down to the gym so I could just scooter on over there and do my little arm exercises, you know, so because I couldn't drive anywhere, I couldn't really, so he came to me, which was really fantastic. And then, you know, once a week I would start going up to Topsfield, and that's where I would see. So he just wanted to make sure he saw me at least twice a week. So he came to me once and I would go to him once. So that was kind of the arrangement for a long time. And I, you know, worked with him for quite a few years. And then I briefly was affiliated with Norwood. And then I moved to St. Louis to work with Justin Thacker at the lab, at Team Lab.
Yeah. And with Norwood, I know Vasily or Vasily or however you pronounce it, and Yasha were kind of the two guys running it. How was that with, you know, a guy who was at kind of the top of his game in Russia as a weightlifter, and then Yasha, who's like a really chill dude, and like, I don't know if people have listened to the podcast I actually did with him, but he works with some like marijuana company.
He does,
like formulating something. It's actually really interesting because he's such like an odd guy in the collection of what he ends up doing and how well he does it.
I know, he's so great. He's such an interesting person to talk to. Every time I hear, I'm like, what? Wait, what are you doing? I'm just like, can we just have really long conversations? Because you're so interesting. But the thing is he wasn't really there a lot when I was training. So most of Yasha I saw was just like in passing competitions. And, you know, he wasn't really there for a ton of my training because I wasn't really at Norwood for a spectacularly long time. But when I was there, the cool dynamic was really between Vaz and Ilya. To be honest, because Ilya was there for a while. He was taking an English class in Boston, and, you know, he wanted to come train with his buddy. And I think he hadn't really been training then. So it was really interesting to talk to him about how he gets back in shape. And actually it was cool to see his English improve, you know, like as the time went on. I think it was that summer or whatever. And he would come into the gym. That man loves weightlifting. Like, say what you want about him, but that man is just like the light of the room. He's like, yeah, oh my God, you got this. Ah! And Vaz is like, okay, can you just do it better though? And so I think one time Ilya was like, you know, I'm inspiration. And he is like, what did he call him? He was kind of like doomsday something. I can't remember what he said, but he was just like, yeah, I'm the happy one. So that was fun.
Yeah. And I imagine lifting with those two. I didn't realize Ilya was there for so long because the one hook grip video came out. That's like a really long, you know, extended video. And Ilya, I think, snatched like 170, clean and jerk 210, might have been a squat jerk too. What was some of the cooler things that you saw lifting with guys who are like the best in the sport or were at one point?
I think it was really cool to see how he prepared and got fired up. He was off on the side being like, I'm nervous, you know, like I haven't done this in a while, but with that, you know, with the cameras, the live stream going, like that man just feeds off it. But I was too. I hit a huge PR that day. I'd never hit 110 before, and I just, you know, so like that atmosphere is contagious, and it totally works. And it was just really cool to see like how methodical he is with things when he would say, you know, like, this is how I come back, you know, when he takes time off, you know, a young weightlifter like myself who'd only been lifting for like, you know, 2 years, a year. Like, I don't know what what do you do after a big competition? What do you do after you've attained this level and you can't maintain it forever? So how do you rest? How do you come back? And you know, this man, like, he has a plan. He knows exactly how he's going to do it. I'll be at this point, you know, this far out or in this many months. So yeah, it was really cool. He was like, I come in, I do, he does it very much just like a competition. I come in, do I think he does his squats first or last or something. And then he just, it snatches and then he rests and then he does clean and jerks. And so it was cool. Yeah.
Yeah. How did you kind of fit in? Because you worked initially to rehab and come back, and then you started to develop as an athlete. And then at Norwood, I mean, you were hitting massive numbers already. Was it kind of like a quick rise? And then, you know, I guess you can just take us through when you were getting up towards the cream of the crop in weightlifting.
Yeah, I gotta say it was a very quick rise. And you know, my coach was like, this is not surprising to me. And I'm like, really? Yeah. This is crazy. And I think at the time I was just like, more. I need to be stronger. I need to be better. I'm not the best yet. And I think when I look back on it now, I realize, all right, we made some good progress. So I have my numbers up here. I just figured, I'll just run you through them. So my first competition was June 7th, 2014. I totaled 164. Oh, wow. Is that what I said before? Yeah. Okay. 164. That was like the best lifts I'd ever done in CrossFit. And I tore my Achilles tendon. So my first competition back after that was in 2015. I did 163. So a little bit less. Kind of came back at like, I guess the same. That was only 5 months after my surgery. That was kind of nice. And 2 months after that, I totaled 170. So that got me to nationals in 2015. And then at nationals 2015 from the C session, I got a 176 and placed 10th. From there, the American Open, this was like a nutso competition, 2015 American Opens, my second national meet. I lose my bag going to this competition. I'm like, I don't have anything, but I have my shoes. Like I'm one of those people who flies. Whatever I need for the objective of the trip is in my carry-on, and then everything else is fluff. So I knew I'd be fine to compete, but so I PR'd I think I PR'd my snatch, and then I PR'd my clean and jerk on my second attempt. And I was having back pain, and I knew I was capable of more, but I didn't. I was kind of laying on the floor, and anyways, I didn't make my third, but I totaled 188, which is like really kind of astronomical progress for already having PR'd just 6 months ago. So, and that's how I got qualified for the junior nationals in 2016. All of a sudden they're like, you've been identified as being like a potential elite athlete, and the Olympics are coming up in 2016, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is astounding, right? I'm so excited. So I get, I take every opportunity to get. My coach always wanted me to compete. I was doing pretty much any local meet I could get my hands on. I wasn't cutting weight, so there wasn't really anything to lose by competing. I was just gaining experience. So I did the junior nationals. I got a 185, so I wasn't really losing anything, but I was leaving, to me, I'm leaving so many kilos on the platform because I felt like I was still getting, even better. And then, so then I went to the test event, and it was bound to happen for any weightlifter, right? And it was cool to be there with, all of a sudden I'm at this competition with Olympians and, people I had just been like admiring, like, wow, look at how much these people can lift, and I'm there. It was so cool. And my coach is like, this is like her 10th competition, and she's brand new, and it was really cool to hear, oh, you have so much potential and talent, and I can't wait to see where you're gonna go. And I bombed out, and I was heartbroken, but people are like, well, that's just gonna happen. The more competitions you do, that's gonna happen. Some people, maybe they've never bombed out, but anyway, so I first had to grapple with that, and then it just got worse from there on the last day. Are we going into this right now?
Yeah. So, and part of the reason, so we wanted to kind of introduce your story and how you got into weightlifting, how you developed kind of the point at which you came into being, so to speak. And then I think a lot of people are familiar with maybe the information that was kind of disseminated out through different like media sources and covering the situation that ended up occurring at the test event. And that's kind of, part of the reason I wanted to get you on the podcast is to really, one, clarify a lot of the stuff that ended up going on, to kind of shed some light on what happened and how it ended up being handled, I guess, by USA Weightlifting. And so I guess this is a good point to kind of introduce the situation and
right.
Again, as much detail as you like, as little detail as you like. I just want you to make sure that whatever you have to say to people who are listening, you can get the message out so people understand how it was handled, what could have been done differently, just because, like, I really hope no one, goes through a similar situation. But if there was something that did happen, how could it be addressed or managed?
Yeah. Okay. So I don't know if I'm going to have all those answers.
Sure. Yeah. And again,
I've been talking about
the stage. Yeah.
Yeah. I've been thinking about. So, gosh, I feel like I'm just not addressing the elephant in the room. Okay. So, the last night of the competition, we decided to go out, and kind of enjoy the day. So, I don't even know if I need to tell all this, but anyway, so we went out, we drank, and I got pretty drunk as well as other people there. At the end of the night, I was out pretty late in front of the lobby with like other lifters. I'm pretty sure from Chile. I know that for a fact. It was athletes from Chile. And yeah, so Colin was there. I was there. I have a really hard time saying his name. Yeah. But definitely I was not proud of my behavior. Like, yes, I was drunk, and but I knew that, like, I got to the point where I was like, yeesh, this is not good. This is not a good look. Like, I gotta go. Plus it's like late. I'm drunk. So I leave. I actually like traded sweatshirts with someone from Chile. So I ended up I have a Chile sweatshirt, a warm up, and I went to bed. And then I went into my room, and one of my teammates was in the room, in the bed. It wasn't actually my assigned roommate. It was somebody, a different teammate that did not feel well during dinner. So she left with the other teammate who was in my room. And not that long later, I guess a couple hours later, I wake up and Colin Burns is in my room over me having sex with me. He's inside me. She's no longer there. So this is, I was raped. And I woke up in the morning, and it's one of those things where you really don't want to admit that that is something that just happened to you. It's really hard to process. It's not something that you just want to be like, oh, yeah, I was just raped, and I think that I'm going to go do X, Y, Z about it. It doesn't really work like that. Mm-hmm. I was drinking, so that wasn't really going to help me. So I head down for breakfast in the morning. I'm kind of trying to figure out, because I'm like, last night is definitely fuzzy. I'm trying to piece it together. I'm like, kind of like, what happened? And I'm getting that, shut up, don't say anything about last night. Not from Colin, this was from other people. I did not want to talk to him. So we just waited in the lobby for like hours, because we were actually supposed to go to the consulate that day, like in our warm-ups and stuff. So I'm down there. I feel horrible. I'm super hungover. Don't feel well. Everything hurts. Anyway, so we end up not going. It just didn't show. We were sitting there for hours. It was agony. But people wanted to go to the mall, and then went to the mall. I kind of had a couple conversations with my roommate. I thought, how did Colin get in my room? No, we asked my roommate, hey, why'd you leave last night? Like, why weren't you in the room this morning? And she said, well, Colin came to the door. We were like, what? Like, why would he do that? What time? She was like, I don't know, like 3. And then he offered to walk her back to her room. She did. Yeah, I mean, assuming, he propped the door up and whatever. Mm-hmm. So, kind of get that story the next day, and I'm like, what the? But and I think I thought I remembered asking, like, did I like wake up when he knocked on the door? Like, did I pop up? Was I awake? But yeah, I feel like I'm going into way too many I don't know, details on this, but yeah, so basically, I just I really didn't want to face it. I don't know what to do. We're in Brazil, so we go to the airport a little bit later, and then we leave. And I kind of try and pretend like nothing happened, but I got home and I just felt like, wow, in a way, I kind of needed like someone to validate what had just happened to me. So I actually drove. I probably got home like in the morning. I hadn't slept all night, and drove to the gym to see the guys I do CrossFit with. Like, hey, what's up? I just got back, And the hard thing is that everyone wants to know how it went, and it went pretty badly all around. Like everything went pretty badly. So I, I'm kind of joking around. He's like, hey, did you hook up with anybody? Like, what was that like? And I'm just like, and I kind of like told him just kind of like what happened from my memory. Like, I woke up and this happened, and he was like, so you were raped. And I had already known that, and I had already been thinking that, and I already but I kind of needed like to say it. It's not something you want to, admit. So anyways, I kind of just thought I would be like, okay, acknowledged. Yes, it happened. No, I don't want to do anything about it. Sounds like a huge nightmare. I don't want to do that. I'm just going to not. So on I went. I told, I told people around me so that they would know what was going on, because there was a huge shift in my self, my personality, my ability to show up at the gym and not cry was broken. So, but I changed all my plans for Nationals 2016 because the Olympic trials, this is my new passion. I want to watch the Olympic trials. I want to see who's going to go. I now know people who are in those trials. I changed my flight. I don't want to watch them anymore. I'm going to leave right after my session. So God, it's just so horrible timing when you don't want to see somebody and you go to those competitions and they're the first person you see. Mm-hmm. It's terrible. I feel like I went to breakfast in the hotel. Now I'm like, okay, great. I can't stay at the venue hotel. I went down to breakfast and I swear to God, he saw me and he sat where I could see him while I was eating breakfast. I was like, I'm going to lose my damn mind. I compete and I hit my last lift. I clean and jerked 108 at that meet at Nationals by being super angry. I hate this person so much. And so I was able to kind of use my rage. I was like, ooh, that was cool. But, not really healthy because that was just a mess for after that meet. I kept going. I kept moving on. I kept going to competitions. I, made this, I am going to get really good at weightlifting. That is what I'm going to do. I don't care about this other person. And so then I decided to go down a weight class. I was kind of in between weights already. And my coach had said, we're not really going to we're not even going to try to add that aspect in until you've really, got weightlifting down better. Right. I'm pretty new. So I do cut for a meet in 2016. And I total 184. So that's still I was like, okay, that's really good. And I do one meet after that, the Olympia in Vegas. And I totaled, this is my PR, lifetime PR is 198. So a year and a half, actually just a little over a year after Nationals 2015, I've added a significant amount to my total. It's super exciting. And then, basically right after that, I was in the gym. I was doing some pretty regular normal squats, and I just kind of my back gave out, and I just started breaking down everywhere in my life, work, relationships, everything. I was trying to ignore it so bad that I would, go out drinking, I would do this, and then I would just end up crying at the end of the night. So I actually went to American Open in 2016, even though I could no longer compete because I hurt myself, and I did the same thing. I went out drinking with people and I just started crying and being like, this is what happened to me at this meet. That person happened to know some people in USA weightlifting and encouraged me to say something. And so he just on the side for me reached out to someone within USA weightlifting and said, hey, hypothetically, if I got a friend who XYZ happened to, is USA weightlifting she wants to know that USA weightlifting is going to be receptive and take it seriously. And this was to Lance Williams. And he responded to my friend and said, of course, we would take it seriously, no matter who it is, blah, blah, blah. And so he forwarded me that email so I could see the whole chain. It would still take me about 3 months after this when I started to come back from my back injury. And I did do another meet. And so I was focusing on Nationals 2017. And so I'm not just focusing on how to lift the most weight there. I'm focusing on how am I going to be okay at this meet? How am I going to go and lift heavy weights and keep my head on straight? And so that email that I had from the friend was bonking around in my head. And, I started getting emails about him in my inbox. This guy is training for the the Arnold, look at him train. And I was like, oh God. I mean, when I went to nationals in 2016, his face was on a banner, bigger than life, right there. I was like, wow, that's really cool. One night, after, plenty of nights crying to my friends, I typed up this email and I was like, this is what happened to me. And I typed it all out. I said, and I sent it to Lance probably like the worst time you could for someone with super anxiety, because I did it on like a Friday night and people don't check their emails until like Monday morning, or maybe it was a Saturday night or something. I don't know. But so I gotta wait till Monday, and Lance, responds right away. He actually was pretty good, and it's like, don't worry, like, we're gonna do this the right way or something. And I'm really sorry. And a couple hours later, I get a phone call from Phil with a lawyer on the phone. And they, basically Phil's like, hi, it's Phil. Here's this lawyer. He doesn't really say anything. And the lawyer goes, first of all, before we start anything, I just want to say I'm really sorry that this happened to you. And Phil chimes in like, oh, yeah, no, me too. I remember exactly where I was when I got this phone call at the gym. I had to go like up to a private area, take this conversation, and I'm just after work. Anyways, they tell me immediately that there's this new organization and it's called SafeSport, and they just opened their doors on Friday. I'm like, okay, what is it? And they're like, it's an organization that is set up to investigate sexual assault in sports. And I'm like, okay, that actually does potentially sound better than USA Weightlifting doing it, when the person who raped me is also on the board as the athlete rep. Like, I don't think I'm going to get a fair shake here, but I'm going to give it a try because I don't really have anything to lose at this point anyways. Like, I wouldn't compete if I didn't. So, but I really hoped, like, I got a witness, right? I don't understand. I'm like, this is, where was I?
So you just spoken to Phil, who put you on the phone.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So then my SafeSport journey begins. They send me all these forms. I got to sign all this stuff saying like, I relinquish, this stuff kind of made me like feel a little icky, but it's like, oh, well, like weightlifting's not going to do this. So like SafeSport's going to do this. I'm like, okay. And, it was kind of weird. Like he had to agree to it and I had to agree to it. And I was like, what if he doesn't agree to it? That seems weird. But anyway, so I did hear from an investigator like pretty soon. I was like one of the first cases for SafeSport is what I have been told. Like, I mean, since they opened on Friday and like they had my case on Monday. Yeah, I was one of the first cases when SafeSport opened. I had no idea what it was. So I'm doing all this research. I'm like, what is SafeSport? I'm going through all the documentation. I'm reading everything. So everyone agrees, okay, bump, we're going to have an investigation. Things actually seem to be moving pretty quickly. I was like, I have an interview with her. We did it through Zoom. I went through everything with her. I think we had like 2 or 3 conversations. So this was in March 2017 and nationals is coming up in May 2017. And all I want is for this to be done. Maybe that was definitely wishful thinking now, but like, hey, can you do this in 2 months? But they didn't know. I mean, right? They don't have a history. They have no idea how long this is going to take. And so she, I'm like, this is what I'm concerned about. So now everything is going through SafeSport. USA Weightlifting is not in the picture. And to be honest, they really are not at all present, even though I speak to you kind of USA Weightlifting through SafeSport. Like I've been told the whole time, Phil knows what's going on, like they're in contact. So, but everything is through SafeSport. And so I just want everything to be resolved by 2017 nationals. And, obviously spoiler alert, it's not. Mm-hmm. I'm looking at the schedule. It's very easy to tell, who's going to be in the warm-up area. And I'm like, I'm not stupid. I know that he's going to be in the warm-up area. And I tell her this, like specifically, this is the scenario. Please, can we fix it? And she's kind of like, well, we just agreed that you guys won't go to each other's sessions, and we can't really like do anything about it if he's going to be there for his girlfriend's session. And I'm like, but and that really? And that's just what I've been told. So I've been told USA Weightlifting cannot make that accommodation, essentially, right? But I don't know who's in charge, who's making the rules. No idea. And it does say in the SafeSport, policies that they can take interim measures. But there's not really any process to say when that does happen, when it doesn't. Like, there's no triggers to say like it's X serious, or it's credible after this amount of investigation or not. I understand you can't just get it and blare all the alarms, but if you've been investigating for 2 months and you're like, well, this seems quite plausible, then I think maybe we should do something about it. But nothing was ever done. And so at that competition, I remember this feeling. I walked in and I was like, I just had this, huge anxiety, like my heart pounding. That's like, that's like the excitement you get when you walk on a stage, right? Athletes use that. We use that as fuel. So by the time I got out there for my first snatch, it was all gone. I was like, what the heck? I was just out there in the lights and I was like, okay, I guess I'm doing a lift, right? I was like, spent. So I missed my second snatch. And I get to my third one and I'm like, oh my God, this is, I'm gonna bomb again, right? I don't know. Anyways, but someone told me just go out there and snatch. I was like, okay, but it definitely affected me. Maybe it sounds like an excuse, but like, that's what I felt. I was like, wow, I don't have panic. I got the panic when I thought I was going to bomb out. So anyways, Lance did come up to me and talk to me after that, because I got my first medals. That was the first time I got any medals. And I fought hard for those. Really did. And, he was impressed and he came and he told me so. And to be honest, that is really the last time I talked to anyone at USA Weightlifting until way later. So I was in contact with SafeSport because now Pan Am's is coming up in 2017 and Worlds are coming up in 2017. And both of those competitions are in the United States. And I want to go to them. But I don't want to go to them if my rapist is going to be there. You know what I mean? So I'm like, are we going to get this resolved? Is this going to get resolved? Every time he's supposed to compete, like, this doesn't seem fair. What is going on? Like, how long is this going to take? And I keep hearing, oh, well, he's saying he wasn't in your room. I'm like, how can that be? He's calling two people a liar now. And they're just like, well, we might just have to close it off, without his statement, if that's how it goes. And I felt like that just wasn't going to go well either. But I guess eventually he had one interview. I find out a lot of this information, as we go. So I find out that it wasn't until, I believe, August. It was definitely after Nationals 2017. So it was either like before or after Pan Am's that he competed at that. They flew out to California to interview him, which I guess is kind of rare. They mostly do everything through video. He was interviewed with an ex-FBI investigator, something like that, so I've been told. And they confronted him with, we have enough information. We think, we can put you in that room. So finally he's like, okay, yeah, I was. And then he starts telling the story. And then they kind of just cut him off and they're like, yeah, well, you know what? If you want, you can just like go back and write down your story and you give it to us later. And I'm kind of like floored. I'm like, you're going to give him another chance to rewrite his story? Because what he wrote actually contradicted what he had like just told them in the room. So I'm just like, this is kind of nuts. But apparently that doesn't. Anyway, so I'm told that they have all the information for the case. The SafeSport investigator actually did come see me in August 2017. So now we have Worlds coming up. I'm just like, this is driving me crazy. Are you serious? So it was just kind of the same thing again. Yeah, no, we're going to have it done before Thanksgiving. No, we're going to have it done before Worlds. But they didn't. So then, I'm still competing. So I go to American Open in 2017. This is my first win. I win this competition. It's very exciting for me. But before I take my last clean and jerk, like, he walks into the warm-up area. And I hadn't even really prepared for this scenario and at this competition because he wasn't a competitor. He was a competitor at Worlds, but I didn't really think about him being a coach there. If I had, I probably would have been saying, like, he's not allowed here either, right? But so that was just like upsetting, to say the least. Whew, so then again, after that competition, not great again. I had to see him. It felt like that win was just, again, a little tarnished. And then February finally comes and they tell me, okay, we have a decision and we're going to send it to you tonight. So please don't give someone I don't know. I don't know if the heads up was good or not, because I just spent I was at the gym and I'm just checking my email over and over and over again. Am I getting it? Did I get it? Did I get it? Did I get it? So I get it. And I didn't even really read the whole thing. She kind of warned, she was like, it's probably not going to be good for you to read the whole thing, which I was like, yeah, I don't think I want to read about myself in that way. It's the way they write it, you know? So I didn't really, I just kind of skipped to see, hey, what's the decision? And it was all very don't download this, don't copy this, don't whatever. It's going to be destroyed in a day after you read it, like a self-destruct button, right? And they're like, if you break any SafeSport rules, you're out, kind of, almost. I'm like, oh my God, I want to do everything right. But I do regret now not saving the whole thing, but I did screenshot the decision. So I have that. And I sent it to my therapist. I was like, okay, yay. But I had this feeling I knew it wasn't going to stick. And so there is an option to say, hey, no, not cool with this decision. I'm going to take it to the next step. We're going to go to arbitration. So the next level after a
So
safe
what was
sport.
the decision?
So, yeah, good question. The decision was that he lied to investigators, and that's breaking a rule. So they gave him 2 years for lying. And then they did find that they called it non-consensual sexual contact or activity, something like that. I'd have to go look at it again. But so they sanctioned him for 10 years, which I already was upset that it wasn't a lifetime ban, because geez, what do you have to do to get a lifetime ban? That seems quite serious to me. And apparently
Now, you might get into this, and just listening to it, I'm almost curious how, in sport, it's handled one way, right? Sanctions and being banned from competing or showing up to events. But was there any actual criminal, a criminal case held, or was there anything like that where there were actual legal ramifications of something that, if you weren't in sport, would be taken incredibly seriously?
No, unfortunately not. And that is a little upsetting. I think that there is some mechanism in SafeSport that says, I can't tell you the wording, but I interpreted it as, if it is criminal enough or something, is kind of how I interpreted it, then we can get the actual law enforcement authorities involved. My take on that is that they don't tend to do that unless it is very obvious and it's for a child. So interesting to see. It's good. The focus is on children, but I'm an adult and it didn't go so well for me either. So, but no, there wasn't. And that wasn't something that I wanted to really pursue. That's a whole, this is an experience just to go through this, just to feel safe in my sport, to go through a whole official legal proceeding. Plus it didn't happen in this country.
Right.
So, and who would I call? Do I call the Boston police where I was living? I think he lives in California. Do I call California? Or I think he was living in Colorado at the time and he was moving to California. So who do I call?
So initially it was really just to get the sport to be a safe place, right? To report it, have them take action so that you could compete and enjoy something that you enjoyed so much, without the worry that those interactions would happen, and sadly they did.
Right.
So maybe we can kind of restart back where you kind of left off before I kind of popped in with the questions.
Sure. Yeah.
So it was with the
Where were
decision, and then so the decision you read it, you kind of figured it out, and then after the fact,
Yeah.
what happened? And one question I guess I do have before we get into that is, was this leaked, not leaked necessarily, but communicated to the public, maybe
No.
during or after, or any point where people in the sport actually aware of, what was going on? Is there something where they can't talk about it? I'm not too privy to that.
No, that's a good question. Not really. The only people that really knew were the people who were like in my life, right? So yes, of course, there were a couple of weightlifters who I trained with, who were with that kind of knew what was going on. And obviously the person I told, that person's in USA weightlifting. So like there were a few people that I told like immediately after or like within that year, but I didn't really keep anyone apprised of, all the SafeSport updates, all the investigation updates as they were going, except for, my boyfriend, right? Like he was there for half of it, some of it. So, and my family and my friends who don't give a damn about weightlifting, there's, there's a few of those that just don't know the drama. That's there. It doesn't really matter if they know or not, but no, I wasn't like, I don't really know anyone. It's just like there wasn't, but there's also no like, there wasn't. I checked. There wasn't anything that said that I couldn't talk about it. Like, how can you tell someone who's going through this? No, you cannot tell anyone about it. That seems so extreme. You can't tell people going through this not to tell anyone about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I guess it makes sense that until there was a decision that would be communicated in the sport, right? So when it's posted and made public, people just wouldn't be made aware of it. How, and I'm kind of curious, like up to this point, like how did your family and close friends handle it? And then given kind of the process, how was that all managed?
So my family did not know about it. I definitely didn't want them involved in this at all. Otherwise I was really, really pretty private about it. I mean, I don't really want to go shouting these things from the rooftop. I just, had a few people that I would be like, oh, this happened. I'm still waiting. It feels like it's going on forever. I just had my girlfriends like that I'd be talking to. But yeah, I didn't, my family wasn't in the loop. My training partners, the people I lifted with, the people I went to competitions with, I did kind of have to tell them like, hey, if we see this person, I'm going to freak out or I'm going to run away or whatever. And they were really great. They would, be on the lookout for me. And so when they saw them, they would kind of like, put themselves between me and them. So I could kind of like pretend not to be there, I guess, or just not have, not have to acknowledge or deal with it. Like those people I needed in my corner, right? Like, how could you possibly rob someone of that to tell them you can't tell anyone about what's going on? Like, I guess maybe you can't know. I mean, whatever. I wasn't really telling people, like, there weren't a lot of details to give, to be fair. So like, I was like,
yeah. Before we get to the point after the decision, with which I assume it was kind of made more public, and this is maybe a more personal question, but did you have any relationship with him beforehand? Not like relationship, like
no, I didn't know him before.
I'm just wondering why that would happen, and of course that we probably would never know unless he were to give some sort of honest answer about why it happened or things went down the way they did. I was just curious if there was any ever like communication beforehand or anything like that preceded it.
Before this trip, I did not know him.
Okay.
But obviously we got to know each other on the trip.
Right. Okay.
So, but no, and I have not spoken to him since, other than seeing his face at competitions or hearing him speak at the arbitration.
Okay.
That's it.
And then the decision comes down. What was your initial reaction to that?
Good.
Yeah.
Like, okay, obviously he did that. I kind of got that feeling from the investigator. But what? 10 years? Like, what, 1/5 of that is going to be the same punishment for lying? It just kind of doesn't seem equivalent. But there wasn't really too much excitement about it because I just knew. I remember calling my my therapist and being like, this is the decision. And he was, he was really excited. And he was like, Jen, no, they're like, this case, like, you can't overturn this. This is going to look so bad. And I was like, yeah, you're right. It is. So I had like a little bit of hope, but I guess they don't care how bad it looks. That's not of any concern to them. So that was my initial reaction. To me, it was still just another hurdle, another deadline in the future that was probably going to take a ridiculous amount of time again. Because I was like, I already had to wait so long for this decision. How long until the next one? Mm-hmm. And what are they going to do in between? Because this is when all the lawyers got involved. This is when things like, take out like just the time it took. This is when things like got horrible. Mm-hmm. And I didn't realize this at the time. And I did kind of know this about the SafeSports website in terms of communication, but there's no like comprehensive list of offenders from SafeSport. You have to go to their website and type in someone's name. So you already have to know that they're an offender to find them. And so I actually didn't even go and do that exercise after the decision came out in February. What ended up happening is he showed up to nationals, and when he was asked to leave, because I pointed out he wasn't supposed to be there, I think people noticed and went, and the few people who, did kind of know, now that people were talking about, they're like, oh, actually kind of know what's happening. And so then people must have gone and maybe checked the website, because I don't really see any other way that would have, like him being asked to leave nationals, people were asking questions. So they must have gone and looked. I was competing, So, like after that decision, I was assured though, like he's sanctioned though. Cause the investigator was like, but rest assured, like, don't worry, like he's sanctioned. So like, cause what I've been asking this whole time is he's not going to be there. He's not going to be there. He's not going to be there. Right. And I'm now being assured that he's not. I'm like, okay, we have something. At least I can do the next couple of competitions without him there. But I still had to fight for that. I still had to call and say, okay, he's not going to be there, right? I had to do that for the American Open, the Arnold, the American Open Series 1 at the beginning of 2018. This was only less than a month after that decision. The day before my competition, I get a call from the director of SafeSport, and he asked me, hey, is it okay if this guy goes to the competition? We've been told by his lawyers that you've gone to competitions before and it's been fine. And I almost don't even know how to answer that. I'm like either going to pass out in this car right now, or I'm just going to scream at you. I don't understand what you guys are missing. What is your mission statement? Why would you call me and ask me that right now? I was just asking to make sure he's not going to be there. This is just like a betrayal. I just don't understand what we've been doing this whole time. If it's a farce, like, just tell me at the beginning. You're not going to get anything. Just go away. Instead of making it so much worse. I guess, I don't hear from him again, but I hear through the grapevine, oh, he's sick. He's not coming. I was like, great. He's not going to be here. And then University Nationals was in, at this time, guys, I am all over the social media after. Actually, no, at this point, because he just didn't go to the competition. So it still wasn't a big deal. Nobody knew. But yeah, I look at social media, and so I see that he was coaching. Like, someone's like, thanks for coaching me at this competition. And I lose it. I'm like, why was he allowed to be there? Like, because I didn't call and ask for him to not be there like I did the last competition. So then I go to nationals and I have a good shot of winning. I feel like I can win. So I'm thinking about that, but I'm also thinking, I think he's going to show up. I think he's going to show up here. And my boyfriend's like, no, of course he's not. And I'm like, I really think he is though. And, I'm getting ready in my room. I think I'm trying to make weight. I'm like, I'm going to compete in a little bit. And I get a text message. He's here from my boyfriend. I'm just like, so I'm had already been emailing and whatever. I'm calling now SafeSport. I'm like, this just cannot be. This can't. And when I emailed Phil, because SafeSport's not answering, I think it's on the weekend. I'd never really gone through Phil, but now I'm kind of forced to. But I have been assured the entire time that he knows what's going on. You know, Phil knows what's going on. He's going to come to your weigh-in. I was told at 2017 Nationals, but he didn't. And so it feels like I don't really know what's going on. But then I do hear that he's been, you know, okay, it's been taken care of, but Phil never communicated that back to me to tell me. So anyways, I go, I compete, I win nationals, super exciting. I hit my PR cleated jerk. And yeah, like the first thing that I hear about is like, they're like, oh, did you hear about this thing? Like people are talking about it. Did you see what is it called? That meme page that's like, oh, we posted this. And I'm like, oh, this is not what I want to hear about right now. I really don't. And then that night, you know, we're hanging out with some other athletes. It was that night or the night later, night after, someone asked, oh, did you hear about this? Is it true, do you guys think? And that was hard because I don't want to be the one that's just like, I'm going to wait. So I didn't say anything. The arbitration was, what year are we in? This was 2018. Mm-hmm. This is a long story. So that was May. And the arbitration was July 13th, Friday the 13th. I knew it was going to be a bad day. I just had a feeling. I was like, there's no way this is going to go well. First of all, SafeSport didn't really give me any input on who would be speaking on my behalf. I would have chosen differently. Not to say that the people who did speak on my behalf were incorrect. I just would have also liked my therapist to have spoken. I would have you know what I mean? Things like that. I just was not consulted. I would have liked the person who was in the room to have spoke, but this is where I realized that I don't think anyone on that trip supported me because everyone spoke on the other side. I really only heard about what was happening in the arbitration like the day before. I got very little information. I was kind of sent like all these documents like a couple days before. I got like 1 week notice to like take a day off from work and be prepared, and like this is just the game plan. And I'm reading all these documents and I'm just seeing like there are rules. I was told that the rules that SafeSport has would apply to the arbitration, things like not bringing up your sexual history, things like not like you don't get character witnesses. That's not allowed, but they allowed it for him. And what they did in allowing those character witnesses was they also allowed someone to just come in and slut shame me. And that's not allowed. So it was very difficult. There was also an expert witness that claims that you can give consent when you are blackout drunk, or you could be blackout and people won't really know it. So it's not up to them to know if you're not incapacitated or drunk or whatever. It was a lot of this mumbo jumbo, like, you guys are, this just doesn't seem right. And I don't have a lawyer in that process. So this is SafeSport's lawyer. He's got his own lawyer. They even changed up the Zoom link the same morning and didn't tell me. So now I'm late. You know, there were just so many little things where I was like, what are you guys doing here? When I tuned into that thing, SafeSport the only evidence they presented was their summary report. So they didn't present any of the evidence that I gave to them because they're the only ones I've been talking to. And he is allowed to present all this new evidence all of a sudden, expert witnesses, character witnesses, brand new stuff, videos of me telling a story from earlier in the night, which, you know, was being touted as being the only video of me of the night, when I'm repeatedly texting my lawyer saying, hey, that's a lie. I sent you guys a video from later in the night. Can you bring it up? It's never brought up. So it was very clear to me that like no one was really on my side here. And the SafeSport lawyer really felt this is a great case. There's no way that they can overturn this. It's just so ridiculous what they're saying. It was very ridiculous what they were saying. He's like, they're just not like, no one's going to buy this expert, you know, hoo-ha, whatever she's saying. That's just ridiculous. Spoiler alert, though, they did. And so I was like on a kayak trip when a week later I got the news, like Friday night at like 8 p.m. I get a call that of the decision to overturn, and like he explains it to me, and I just immediately I'm in tears. I basically cried for like days straight. And so just really unfortunate timing that I was camping and with a whole bunch of people I didn't really know, and I'm pretty sure people could hear me sobbing all night. And we were going out on the boats the next day, and I don't really have service, but I can tell. I saw like that preview on my phone, and from someone on Instagram that kind of said like, you know, sorry, blah, 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 I heard. And I was like, no. And I try and click on it and like, it just doesn't load. And now I'm like, oh my gosh, people know. And they didn't know for me because I didn't have any service. So I spent most of that day hiding under the towel, laying on the bottom of a kayak, just waiting to leave the river and get back to civilization so I could, well, sleep in my own bed, but also see what people were saying. So that's when I started, you know, hearing that Ursula's on Reddit. People are celebrating. Yeah, that didn't feel good, because I'm looking at them and I'm like, you're talking about me. You're talking about me. How could you say those things about me? How could you do this to me? But no one, I guess when I'm anonymous, it doesn't matter to other people. To them, I was just a liar. So that was incredibly hard. I had some people suggest I find a lawyer. What, you know, what's your next steps? What do you want to do now? And I was exhausted. I don't know how you just be like, oh yeah, let me just jump into a brand new fight here. I wanted to, I really did, but at what expense? Like, this had already been so costly to me. So I said, no, but about a couple of days later, you know, someone had said, hey, you should contact this lawyer. You know, he does this type of work. And he immediately took my case. And he was like, we're going to get those guys. Like, this is unacceptable. And I was like, yes, finally, I have someone on my side. We're going to fight for this. We're going to do this. And unfortunately, like, things that just kind of get in the way with plenty of other sexual assault survivors is statute of limitations. Which state do you file in? Things like that. They didn't work out. And so by, you know, I think it was 2019, you know, we did file a suit. And then by March 2020, my lawyers had finally given up and said, you know, there's really nothing here we can do, unfortunately. They were going to try and find a law firm in Colorado to partner with, to take the case with them. And it just did not come to fruition. And the state of California did not work out. And that was it. So all I really have left at this point is to tell my story, which is exactly what I am doing here with you. So I appreciate you letting me rant on about this for a very long time tonight already. There's obviously, as you can tell, a lot of details and a lot of things that happened.
Yeah, there is. And I, you know, I obviously respect, you know, your ability to come on and talk about it so candidly. You know, how are you managing to handle it now? And is that kind of just putting it out there and just making people aware of it? And do you have some sort of like hope or mission? Or
It's interesting that you ask it like that. I would say how I'm doing right now is I'm all over the place. I'm really trying to figure that out. So I do like the way you asked me that, because it does feel like every time I share a little piece of this story that, my mission becomes a little bit more clear. I hear from people all the time. Those messages, while I might not see myself the way that they see me yet, they are giving me a little hope. They are making it a little better. And I hope that in me telling my story, I can help make it a little better for them too. For other sexual assault survivors, for other women that anyone that has to go through this process, because there should be this system in place that you can go that's not going through the actual courses. There should be a way to keep athletes safe in the sport they want to do. And it needs to be a lot better. All I really have right now to give on that, I've started, I'm looking at a lot of my notes. I've started a lot. I'm like, I have ideas. And then I kind of devolve into well, I kind of got to get through me a little bit. And I think as I tell my story, those things that can be better will come to light. I will be able to verbalize them better. Excuse me. I will be able to say, this would have helped me and we need this. And so, there are definitely some things I do think that they told me that I could have an advocate on my calls. I almost feel like that should be required. I don't think I should have been taking all those calls by myself, because then I'm like, well, am I the only one that heard that? I think things like that are important that I just never would have thought of before. I thought, well, I could handle these things on my own. And so, the only way that's going to get better, I guess, is if I do talk about it and I do tell people what, it's going to be hard no matter what, but what were the really horrible pain points here and how can we make it better? And no one's going to do that if I don't ask. I have realized that, no, apparently, no, they don't know. So if they don't know, then they do know, and, they're not doing it, then I'm just going to make a lot of noise, because it's got to change. Right. This isn't okay. Every time I talk to someone along this journey, along this, this story, not just people who are reading the story, people who are involved in it, people who are fighting with me, the lawyers, talking to reporters, they're like, well, then I have this other case. I have this other story. I have this other person, this other, this other sport, this other, there's so many. It's too much, it's too much injustice for me. I can't handle it. It's too much pain. It's gotta be, you guys, we gotta have something better. So that's where I'm getting to. It's really hard. Every day is really hard. I have to kind of work on my relationship with social media as well. That was definitely, I realized after I put my video out, I was like, it can be good. I see a lot of good. I really do. But it caused a lot of harm as well. And so I in the times I can speak out, I do try and address some of those aspects of it,
Yeah. Well, and that's one of the things that I kind of, throughout this entire story, just listening to you talk about it, the thing that I found difficult is that, someone in a really unique situation, it's incredibly tough. I could imagine it's incredibly tough to manage it and to navigate the complexity of not only the legal system, but the legal system within a sport, within this hierarchy of, having people in place who have more power than some and people who have a bigger reputation than some, and that changes and dictates the outcome. And I think what you're able to do now and what you did, I guess, is to discuss how difficult it is to manage, especially on your own. And how when you talk to people who are involved, they're operating within this framework that they're incredibly versed in, so they can ask pointed questions and make a specific case. But you're kind of just left wondering, well, if I would have done something differently, would the outcome have been different? And it's how would I have known that? How is it knowable? Which the person who's experiencing it and going through it should be the most empowered person, I would imagine. And it's kind of sad that it, falls back on other people to support you and to tell you how to tell your story, to get the justice that it deserves. So I sympathize on that end, trying to figure it all out as it's happening. And it seemed like such a drawn out like series of events and timeline that it's also respectable that you were able to manage to kind of stick through it that long. So what ended up happening? Like, what was kind of the final judgment or verdict, or what was actually imposed kind of towards the end after the decisions were made and everything had kind of come to a close? What ended up happening?
Yeah. To me, there's no close to this, but
Right.
the close, I guess there's kind of like two in terms of, SafeSport, the arbitration decision was the close. There's no more steps after that. So they overturned the 10-year ban, basically saying like USA Weightlifting's code of conduct at the time didn't really define consent in the way that I needed them to have defined it in this particular situation. So actually, he could have given him consent, apparently, is what they said. Because I couldn't remember because I was sleeping. Interesting. So that was the decision there. And then they were like, well, you did lie and you admitted it today. So you can't really get around that one. But we do think that, you've already served a little bit of time. So we're going to count all time served as served already. And 2 years kind of seems a little harsh. I mean, SafeSport couldn't even provide us with evidence to say like what a normal ban was. Again, it's like 1 year old right now, but they couldn't give them any evidence because SafeSport can't release any of this data. Apparently it's not allowed, it's confidential. So without like support to say that 2 years was sufficient, the arbitrators thought they could decide what was sufficient. So they thought, 18 months sounds pretty good. And you've already served like 6. So you're good to go next year. Have a nice day, everybody. Gosh, that was heartbreaking. I wrote a letter to the arbitrators. I don't really know what my point was there, but I wanted them to know my pain. Like what they had done there was gross. It was gross. Nothing came of that, but so that was the end of that. And then, I did file a lawsuit against him and USA Weightlifting and USOC, I guess, that's coordinated with my lawyers, but that got dismissed because it was filed in California. He just got to say basically, well, I didn't live in California at the time, so they were like, yeah, that's not a good enough connection, so you got to pick a different state. But then we were past like the deadline, and Colorado, so that's over too. It's everything, I guess, as you say, is wrapped up. Like story over for everybody else except for me, But so I'm just here still, just trying to process it all. I don't lift anymore. I can't really, I think about every time I had to go to and like how it really devolved. Like I was going to compete and it sucks because I was doing well. But that last competition that I did after the arbitration was horrendous. I just cannot imagine doing it when people actually knew my name, because then I could at least say, well, they don't know it's me. Like I know a few people know it's me, but like in general, I could say, well, they just don't know it's me. But now, so even, I was planning to go to an international competition, and it must have been really rare. Like the first time I got that letter, like you can go. And I was like, do you accept or not? And I was like, within 1 second, like, yes, I accept. And then the second time, they were like, you have until whatever, the 31st to reply. So I like kind of put it down. And like the next day or 2 days later, it wasn't even close to the deadline. Hey, are you going to go? Like, I guess it was weird that I didn't know if I wanted to go. That was why. So anyways, I accepted, but I didn't go. I'm just trying to figure out how to live with it for the rest of my life. The not having any justice at all, I guess. I have to figure out how to live with that. So that's just what I do every day.
And given, the amount of people who probably tune in and listen, and hear this and wonder if they can help in any way or contribute or advocate or do something. Is there any kind of direction we could give them or a place we could guide them to, or, something they could do? Because, given, you have a few hundred people, even if only 10 want to actually take serious action, that's like 10 more people. So is there anything people could help with or contribute to, or something they could, even if it's not specific to this situation, and it's something within their own social circles, or something you would implore them to do?
That's a good question. I hadn't thought about that, but I think it would be good, especially for people in the weightlifting world, in the sports world, to at least know about SafeSport and kind of maybe know their rules. I don't know how we do this, but maybe we got to start writing letters or something. But there is a bill that has gone to the House. I think it's passed the House. It needs, or something like that. Like, maybe I can look it up, but it does have to do with SafeSport. So Congress is the one that would need to, has the oversight over SafeSport. So this is something that we can contact our representatives about. But I will have to look up exactly what that is. It's hard to kind of stay up on all those things when, but so that if you look it up, like the USA, gymnasts, they're involved with this as well. It's in there. There's kind of some push for it, but it's hard. There hasn't been enough urgency for it. I mean, if you pay attention to politics, it's kind of been dominated by one person for the past 4 years. So that actually literally has affected my case, news wise, this in terms of this bill, So I don't know. Read Chanel Miller's book, Know My Name. Hers is really good. I still haven't watched Athlete A, but things like that. I think people just really need to kind of understand that it's a big problem. I wish I had better to do things other than just kind of talk about it and educate yourself on it.
No, and I mean, that's incredibly useful. And trying to think of the name of the course, I actually just had to take. So I'm in a master's program, and it was actually required that we take a course that educates you on different situations you can be involved in that are like this and similar to this, and how to approach people or how to communicate with people who might have been involved in something, and how to talk to them, how to help them. And is there some advice to people if they do come into contact with someone who's been in a situation similar, or a very personal situation, something that deeply affects them, how they can help and not just kind of either brush it off or be too intrusive, or I guess how to feel out the conversation and how to best kind of facilitate kind of some direction with it? That's what a lot of people wonder. It's like, how do I approach it? Right.
Yeah, that is a good point. And I know, now that I'm reading books and other people's stories, it's going to be tough with relationships and sexual partners and things like that. And I think you really need to just kind of be there for somebody. I mean, it's pretty simple advice. You don't push them to do anything. Don't tell them where they should be in their healing. Just be ready to listen to them and help them. And if you see, it is hard when you're in my position to kind of see where things are difficult. Give them a little push, hey, not too much, but maybe you should get out today. You don't have to, but we could go on a walk together. It's just simple things like that, just to know that you're there, and validation. It really does help, the acknowledgement to say hey, look, we don't have to talk about it, but I know you're going through a really hard time. And if you want to talk about it, we can. And if you don't, let's go get some ice cream. Those things are super helpful. They really are. Other than that, I mean, just listen, listen to them. Don't tell them what they went through. That what they perceived was wrong, that what was intended was different, because it doesn't really matter what you intended. If you do hurt someone's feelings, you did that, and you do have to listen to someone say that. And you can say, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to, and I'm going to change my behavior next time. Those things are really important. I really do want people to grow. and listen to people. And so we can make things better, but it doesn't happen if we don't listen to each other. So don't tell people what they went through.
Yeah, and I guess the last thing could have I guess the second part of that question would be on social media, given how this was handled in what I saw on Reddit, which was kind of like a shit show.
Yeah.
Is there also a certain way that it should be handled when it's publicly communicated between one another on like a social media platform where, people are, kind of just saying whatever they want, however they want, without any indication of what's going on or the details of the case.
Yeah.
So is there any etiquette there as well?
Yes. I really think people need to write their comments thinking that it was their girlfriend or their sister that they are commenting on and that she can read those messages. I really think people need to take that into consideration because I did. I read them all. I mean, it felt intentional in the hurt being hurled, and that just doesn't feel good. And we don't need to do that. And it's really hard when people say, well, this is my assumption until the full story comes out. And that, is a big driver in me saying, okay, well, if you want the full story, then can you give me a second, to tell it? I'm not saying you go and ask someone, but no one goes, I can't, say these things with absolute, but I can tell you from my experience that this is really shitty, excuse my language, but like people aren't really doing this for any other reason other than to feel safe. Mm-hmm. And so I just hope people would consider that when they write about that, when you try and defend someone that has hurt somebody else, just because they've treated you fine does not mean that is true for everybody else. So like there's room for a lot of truths here. Okay. Like they're not exclusive. He was nice to me. This isn't possible. It doesn't work that way. Okay. So I really do want people to kind of try and understand that these things, they can be true. And they are. And, when you're posting these stories about somebody else, try not to like tag them in it or send it to them. Even someone like myself right now who is putting pieces of the story out there, that gives me no control over when I'm going to feel these feelings or go to that place. So, when you see people, I think I forgot to do it on my last one, but when you see people do trigger warnings and things like that, that's why, so people can see it and go, oh, I'm not ready for it. I'm going to come back to that later. So I've been going through that a little bit more the last couple days. Obviously I started to put it out there, but things like that. But yeah, the internet is visible to everybody. So I saw your comments.
Yeah. And for people on the other end who do want to send out support and yes, give their take on the situation, what happened. Yeah. We'll kind of direct them to where they can reach out and how they can communicate with you. But is there any way that you kind of want them to word their messages or approach it versus just like, hey, I listened to a podcast and this is how I feel about it?
Oh, that's a really nice question of you to ask. I mean, no, not really. I'm not really going to tell any of those people like how to say or whatever. I just would tell people that I am going to be slow to respond. Like, and I so appreciate every single message, but I realize now I need to take my time with them. Even, the most heartfelt, like amazing ones, they are great, but I gotta put that aside for when I can do it. But no, I appreciate like every single supportive message I get, and every single one I get makes me see myself a little bit better and a little bit stronger and a little bit like they do, which is wonderful. And I appreciate every single message. I know that some people are like bearing their heart to me. They're telling me their stories and it means something. So like, I know every time I say something that other people are listening and that it is healing for them. And so I just want them to know that like that feeling is mutual.
Yeah. And then and you kind of mentioned it earlier, like how you're managing the situation, how you're structuring your life now, but do you have any details for us about like your plans heading forward? You know, what's in store for you?
This is like the question that everyone has been asking me, because I'm just that person that I'm like, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. And I have probably thrown out like 5 or 6 different like life plans. It's really hard. I feel like I'm kind of starting over, and I'm not sure. I'm kind of toying with the idea of just like quitting and traveling the world and to be a travel blogger. I don't know. It's like the only thing that makes me happy these days. So if I have a travel blog, I hope you guys will like read it. But that's one of the plans. I don't know. I want to start creating.
Didn't you like live in some sort of
an RV?
Rockers? Yeah, and you had like your cat. Didn't you toilet train your cat?
Yes, I did.
Yeah. I was wondering where I remember that from. That's actually absolutely crazy.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So I've already like sold all my stuff, and like I lived in a tiny space. So I'm like, I don't really need a lot of stuff. I don't need a lot of space. Like, let's just go take a suitcase and like see stuff. I think it'll be so fun. But yeah, we'll see. The pandemic, like I've just been staying at home like all day, all the time. So that's what I have. Maybe I'll do that. Otherwise, I don't know. I'm like trying to write it down. I'm like, maybe I'll write a book. I don't know. It's hard. You kind of gotta like go there, and I am trying to be creative. I'm trying to like do different things. We'll see. You know, I think that this is going to be an interesting time in my life. I'm kind of excited to see what comes next, because I am seeing like some hope and some ideas, and I can't really tell you. There's a lot of plans.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then for everyone who did listen and would like to reach out, obviously Instagram, but where can they contact you or communicate with you, or communicate, I guess, in general about whatever, you know, they want to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I could give people my email.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah, that works.
Yeah. Okay. Should I just say it, or do you want to?
Yeah. You can just say it, and then I'll I'll also put it down in the description down below if people listen and then spell it out.
Yeah. So my email is Jennyfer Kang, which is JENNYFERKANG @gmail.com.
Okay, so, and then your Instagram handle is?
It's that with an underscore between Jennyfer and Kang.
Okay.
So JENNYFER_KANG.
Yeah. And do you have any other places, like places where you've written stuff or done anything that you would like to also direct people to, or is it just kind of like Instagram for the time being?
Yeah, it's really just Instagram.
Okay, awesome. And then any final words for people who listen to this entire show and kind of have, you know, a good picture of who you are and what life has been like for the past, you know, however many years we detailed, you know, up to this point?
Yeah, I guess I'd say just thanks for listening. I know this has been really long, and I really appreciate it. But, you know, I hope you do follow along with me. I am going to keep speaking about it. And I'm just, I hope that you're along to like learn and like help make the world better. So, yeah, thanks for listening, and I hope you join me.
Yeah, and that's actually one thing I did notice is it's kind of it's very intimate, like what you do share. So I think people have to almost let go a little bit to think about it just from a purely objective viewpoint, and try not to form an opinion or to assume, I guess. And
right.
it is difficult because, you know, you obviously want to empathize with the person, and you, like, when I listen to that, like, I feel hurt as well. So for people who are interested, check it out, look at all the videos and stuff. Just have an open mind, and I guess like an open heart, as corny as that sounds.
Yeah, no, that's right though. Yeah, because it's hard. Like, you don't know me, right? And this whole story, this whole time, I have been the unknown. So it's been pretty easy to say whatever you think or want about me, and you kind of like or idolize or whatever the other person, and know that must be hard. So thanks for listening to me finally tell my story and what I went through.
Yeah, and then anyone who listens to this has a podcast or any other like medium of communicating information about weightlifting, like, reach out to Jennyfer if you feel like this is something you would like to share as well and help her get her word out. I think that'd be incredibly useful. You could always support the show and the work I do by leaving a review and sharing it with your friends and family. Your family obviously won't care, but your weightlifting friends will. So share it around on social media. You can follow me at Josh_PhilWL. You can catch us on Spreaker, Spotify, iTunes, and all of the other podcast platforms. And we will catch you guys next week on another episode of the Philosophical Weightlifting Podcast.